The Trump administration is proposing extensive restrictions on the country's asylum system. The changes would redefine who qualifies for asylum and refuge in the U.S. and how people go through the system. It's all part of the Trump administration's ongoing efforts to limit the number of people seeking refuge in this country, claiming the system is abused and exploited. CBS News immigration reporter Camilo Montoya-Galvez joins me now for more. Hi, Camilo. Can you break down a few of the changes the White House is proposing, and how would cases move through the court system under these new rules?
Hi, Tanya. So this proposed rule by the Departments of Justice and Homeland Security would redefine, as you mentioned, who is eligible for humanitarian protection here in the U.S. and create additional barriers at every stage of the U.S. asylum process. Among many other restrictions, this regulation would make it difficult, if not impossible, for migrants to seek refuge from gender-based persecution, gang threats, and torture at the hands of government officials whom the U.S. government deems were acting in a rogue capacity. There are other strict provisions in this regulation, Tanya, that would even encourage immigration judges to deny asylum to people who prove they could be persecuted if they cross the border illegally, did not file taxes, or transited through a third country to reach the U.S., and also if they worked under the books.
And so, Camilo, if these changes are enacted, what will it mean for those currently trying to enter the U.S. at the southern border?
Right. So this is a proposed regulation that has not been enacted, as you mentioned, but if it is imposed and instituted in the coming weeks, it might not have a large immediate effect because currently the Trump administration is expelling most unauthorized migrants, including asylum seekers and unaccompanied children, from the U.S.-Mexico border under a public health order that officials say is needed to contain the coronavirus pandemic. But once this is implemented and once the public health order is lifted, this regulation would have a dramatic impact in the U.S. asylum process and make it even more difficult for asylum seekers to seek refuge in the U.S. And it would be just another layer to the many asylum restrictions that the U.S. has imposed in the past 3 years to curtail the number of people coming in.
And so, Camilo, as you mentioned, right now these are just proposed changes, but what are the next steps in the process that could put them into place, and how likely do you believe that is to happen?
This proposed regulation is slated to be published in the federal government's Journal of Regulations on Monday, and from there on, the public will have 30 days to file comment on it. After that, the administration will then work to publish a final regulation that may or may not be altered in response to these comments that the public will be able to file.
So will there be any legal challenges to these changes?
Lawyers about these proposed changes, and they all said that they expect this policy, just like the other immigration policies that the administration has implemented to restrict asylum, to be challenged in court because they believe some of these provisions are illegal and run contrary to the statutory intent and framework that Congress put in place to make sure that the U.S. offers protections to those who are fleeing certain types of persecution, like those who flee gender-based persecution.
And Camilo, in a separate issue, the U.S. has expelled hundreds of migrant children since March under an emergency order from the Centers for Disease Control aimed at stopping people potentially infected with the coronavirus from spreading it. Now, you spoke with a lawyer from the American Civil Liberties Union, which has filed a suit challenging that order. Let's listen to some of that.
There's no question there's a lot going on. But I think this is the time where people really need to take notice of the administration going after vulnerable people. You know, they're sort of sight unseen at this point, but these are little children fearing for their lives, fighting for their lives, And the administration is hoping that everyone doesn't pay attention given everything going on. I think these are the times when the American people need to be most vigilant and look out for these children. I mean,
and Camilo, speaking of little children, you interviewed a 13-year-old girl involved in this lawsuit. Can you tell us her story?
Interviewed her mother, who is an immigrant from El Salvador, who actually lives here in New York. She obtained a protection that is harder to get than asylum in 2018 after a judge found that she could be persecuted in El Salvador if returned because of her past work as a police officer. She said she refused to engage in corruption while she was in El Salvador, and this prompted gangs to threaten her because of this. Now, she allowed her teenage girl, her 13-year-old daughter, to stay with family in El Salvador, but she also became the victim of gang threats while she was there. And so she journeyed to the U.S.-Mexico border in April, but she was not allowed to seek any type of humanitarian protection here and was swiftly expelled under this coronavirus public health order that the administration says is necessary, again, to prevent potentially infected migrants from coming into the U.S. And the administration has been very clear, Tanya, that they believe that even children could spread the coronavirus in the U.S.
And so this little girl was returned to El Salvador?
In El Salvador, what the mom told me that she is essentially in hiding, but with this lawsuit that the ACLU has filed on the girl's behalf, they are asking the court in the federal district court in Washington, D.C. to order the administration to stop applying this order to unaccompanied migrant children like the mother, the daughter of the mother that I talked to, and to allow that girl to come back here to the U.S. to pursue an asylum claim and to be reunited with their mother.
Camilo Montoya-Galvez, thank you so much. With all the rest that's going on in the world, it's important that we don't forget these stirring, immigration stories that you're covering. Thank you so much.